So today we're going to be answering your questions about LinkedIn. And I've had some people drop me some questions recently, so that's exciting. We'll add those to the questions that people have been submitting over the last few weeks as we've been talking about LinkedIn. So we come here every Tuesday and talk about the now, the new, and the next in careers. And of course, LinkedIn makes it easy to talk about the now and the new because they're always doing something new with the platform. Hi, Laura. Good to see you. Thanks for jumping in. Hi, Jen. It's good to see you too. Thank you. And we are going to dive right in and talk about some of these LinkedIn questions. So some of them we'll do a little bit of show and tell. Some of them I'm just going to answer, and then we'll kind of see where we go from there. So one of the new things that LinkedIn is just rolling out is a lot of new video tools. Hi, Gary. Good to see you again. Excellent. Joanne, good to see you too. So LinkedIn's been rolling out some new video tools. I don't know if any of you have access to the new feature in the iPhone app only, where you can see videos that kind of look like a TikTok thread. If you have that feature, drop me a note in the chat. Let me know. Hi, Norma. It's good to see you. So do you have the iPhone feature where you can see the new videos in the thread? People are asking, do videos get viewed? And it kind of depends on the video. So we went through those a few weeks ago. We went through some of the algorithm data. And here's the thing with video, and this kind of gets to a question that Gene Stoner asked too, like, what are the metrics? What do we want to see? And when you look at video gets a low amount of views, like your viewer number will be low. But what video does get, and the algorithm data shows that actually video has the highest rate of engagement. So comments, people engaging with the post when it's a video. Now you do want to keep your videos short. 1 to 1.5 minutes is where they hit the best. But if you've got a good audience, you can drop a longer one every once in a while, especially if it gives them information that is going to be valuable to them. You'll get good engagement with that as well. And this is where that what are my metrics is really dependent on what are you doing. So if you are, a few weeks ago, we had the 5 different calls to action. You can go back and catch that one. A few weeks ago, we talked about the 5 different calls to action. Your metric is going to be based on your call to action. So in every post, for instance, we'll start with posts, you will have a call to action and your metrics will be based on whatever that call to action was. So if your call to action is for people to comment, then you'll be looking at, did people comment or not? And how might I ask the question better next time if I didn't get a whole bunch of comments, those types of things. If your call to action is a link and a click through, I really recommend that you use a link where you can track the click-throughs. So I use B-Link. It was a system that was on a lifetime deal a long time ago, but you can use Bitly or Owly. It really doesn't matter, but you want to create a link that you can track, and that will help you know what does that look like. And you can look at metrics, benchmarks for click-throughs and those types of things, but you're really just comparing yourself to yourself. So if you're doing it every week, you've got a link with a click through. What does that look like? Are people gaining? What topics do well? You're going to track those types of metrics. If you've got a call to message you, obviously you'll be tracking, do people message you? Was that effective? You might look at views of your profile around different post dates. Do you get more views to your profile? But it's kind of a vanity metric. It's important, but then what do people do from that? Are people clicking through on your profile? Are they using your button to set up a link, time to chat, or wherever your button goes? And that's where you really want to think about, if you're using LinkedIn for business, about your funnel. I don't really like that word, but it makes sense. So if I'm posting something, what's the next step people would take? How am I tracking if they take that step or not? Making sure that step is trackable. A link that I can track, a download that obviously then I would get people's emails. So you want to think through the whole process, and you can have a bunch of different types of content that you post that all leads to the same kinds of resources that will be helpful for people, that then would help you figure out, is this beneficial? Is it valuable? Are people clicking through to see it? Are people putting in their email to download it? And those would be the metrics that you want to look at. because that's business. That's the real goal. If you're in it for the business, is business. And so looking at post views, looking at followers or profile views, those are kind of up here in the metrics. And we want to pay attention to the conversions, the click-throughs, the downloads of your information to collect people's emails. All of those metrics are going to matter a lot more. And the good part for most of us is that right now it's zero, right? You're getting 0 click-throughs because you're not paying attention to it, or you're getting 0 downloads because you don't have a download. So if you get 2 next week, woohoo, right? That's 2 more than you were getting last week. And you can build on that, and you can track which things lead people to download better than others, which things get more downloads than others, because that's really what matters. And the views and the click-throughs, those are going to lead to those things. So you do pay attention to them. But at the end of the day, if you post a video and that video only gets 300 views, but it gets 10 click-throughs and 5 people to give you their emails to get your free download, that's better than a post that gets 10,000 views and no click-throughs and no people getting your download, right? So it's a flip on how we might think about things to really drive our metrics more to the business metrics than to the top level metrics like the views and all of those things. So hopefully that's helpful, Jean, is to really plan why are you doing it and measure what matters. And yes, looking at some of those other metrics is helpful, and tracking those, what types of posts get the most views. But a lot of that is hit and miss. It has to do with what LinkedIn's doing today. It has to do with maybe what trending on that day. And you can try to tap into those things, but at the end of the day, it's the business results that matter. If you're working with a job seeker, I really don't recommend they even start worrying about traffic and views and posts and those things. They're really focused on meetings and networking and getting people to accept their connection requests and having people, want to have meetings with them about their company, their industry. Those are the metrics that matter to them. And again, we don't want to get stuck in those vanity metrics. Excellent. All right. So feel free to drop your questions as we go. I'm going to make sure I circle back around to them. So one of the other questions that people have asked is, should I collaborate in the collaborative articles? And LinkedIn just rolled out an article a few days ago. I'll find it and drop it here. It was in our newsletter last week, I think, that they made it easier to find the collaborative article titles. So here's the thing with collaborative articles. One, you are giving LinkedIn content that it's not a far stretch to see that they're going to start using that content in their own stuff. So you're giving them content and they will be able to use it without attributing it to you. Is that a big deal? I don't know. Really depends on you and what you do and what you're sharing. They also have some articles that are just really busy, and they started to let people kind of upvote content, not just on whether I like it or not, but is it quality content or not? But that's not very, it's just not very well regulated. So there's 300 comments on something about a resume. Half of them are trash, and the other half are just lost in the void. So if you are going to participate in collaborative articles, I'd highly recommend that you find a very niche topic to contribute to, where your target audience is going to be narrowed down a little bit. So I've had people write to me and say, Marie, all I'm getting is people who are unemployed. They can't afford my services. Well, so let's figure out how you get the vision, the visibility to people who are employed, but looking to take a step, or are employed, but want a new job. And one of those ways is to dig deeper into the industry niche. So one of our colleagues, Arthur, he's in manufacturing, and he's been in automotive. He's been in HR and automotive. And so we talked about finding topics that were in that niche and then responding to questions in the collaborative articles that are inside that niche, instead of general career and resume stuff, which are just flooded with responses. Find those niche articles. And even if it's a little tangential, so they're talking about leadership development, or they're talking about something that's not necessarily career related, he can speak to those, he can talk in those spaces and draw attention to himself from people in the industry, not just from people who are reading resume, cover letter, LinkedIn, job search stuff, which is mostly just us reading our own stuff if we're honest, right? And maybe some job seekers reading those things to try to get some help, but they may not be your target audience. So we've been talking about that, and it's been productive. The other thing we can use those collaborative articles for is in those niche topics to see who else is responding to those topics, and we might have some strategic partners there. So it might be a consultant in the automotive industry or recruiters in that industry. It might be other people who are also responding to those collaborative articles, maybe even some leaders who could be prospective customers. But oftentimes it's kind of those referral partners, other people that are trying to build their visibility in that niche, likely not doing the same thing you're doing, and could be great partners for you as you move forward. So if you're going to do collaborative articles, be careful about your intellectual property. LinkedIn is gathering all of that content, and who knows what they'll do with it. And you might say, yeah, but my posts are the same thing. Yes, but when you make your own posts, they're at least having a visibility for you. And it's more tied to your name than when you just submit to a collaborative article. So be careful about that and find those niches to communicate in instead of trying to be found in the big, huge, long, group of people that's responding to some of these more generic career topics. Yeah, Gary, I agree. I think we're going to start seeing what they've been collecting that content for soon, and it'll be interesting to see how we see it come back at us and how they do that. But I have no doubt that they're going to start doing that. Hi, Amelia. Yes, I'm glad to hear my voice returned too. So I lost my voice on the last day of our symposium in Lisbon. It's been it's a little interesting. Of course, we have such a great leadership team that we didn't miss a beat at the symposium, but I was glad that it came back for today. Okay, so there's some questions answered. One of the other questions, and this someone dropped here right before we went live, was writing a LinkedIn summary and headline for someone that has 2 jobs. And when we're doing this, we only get one profile. So here's the conversation I would have with that client. First of all, is there a focus that is more likely to be aligned with the audience that's on LinkedIn? Because we know that some types of organizations are on LinkedIn more heavily than others. And so I just want to explore that first. Is there one focus that makes more sense to highlight on LinkedIn than the other? If not, then what I probably do for the LinkedIn headline and summary is take it to the brand foundation. So you show up as you in everything that you do. Your unique promise of value is something you carry into everything that you do, whether that's your strategic outlook or your drive to be practical or innovative or whatever it is. You bring that essence to everything that you do. And so I would want to bring that essence out first in the headline, in the summary, without being obtuse. Now, that means I can't be too broad, because then, you don't stand for anything when you try to stand for everything. So I've got to figure out how to tie that brand foundation to some very specific keywords in those fields. And you can see right away how it's going to be easier if I pick kind of the lead field and then maybe a sub field. When I try to put 2 even, it's going to be hard. It can be doable. I don't know exact things that you're talking about, but you bring that foundation in, make sure that's really clear. This is who you are. This is how you add value. And then you can add in those keywords for those 2 separate areas and be clear about how you offer value in those 2 separate areas. The more different they are, the harder sell that's going to be. The more similar they are, the easier it will be, because they'll kind of go together. If they're very different, like you have someone who's an accountant and an engineer, I would figure out which one's going to be the lead. What are they most likely to get traction on in LinkedIn, and let that one be the lead. Okay. Other questions. Trying to get back into HR. My background is 8 years in sales. Get back into HR. So this is a way that we can really, again, get to that brand essence. I was working with a person a while ago who had been an engineer and then went into financial services and now wanted to get back into engineering. And we had to talk about that piece of him that was a great engineer that also made him good as a financial advisor. So we could weave those two pieces together, make the summary more focused on the engineer piece, but we couldn't drop that financial piece out. Then we made the current job as a financial person a little bit shorter so that we moved quickly into that next job in HR. And of course, any kind of translating we can do. So I always talk about translate and reweight when we talk about resumes. And that means that we want to take the current job and pull out the pieces and highlight the pieces that are similar to the target job. So if I'm in sales, I'd want to talk about the people parts of that job, any leadership aspects, any hiring, firing, anything I did in my sales role that relates to HR. And I'm going to reweight that information from my sales job that is relevant to HR. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to blow it up a little bit. And I might downplay the sales part a little bit, depending on what those look like and how relevant they are. But we want to translate into the language of the current job target. And we want to reweight from our job the information that's most relevant towards the job target. So that's our goal when we're writing, whether it's on a resume or LinkedIn, is to write to the future, right, for that job you want to target now, and really base everything you write from the past on that future. Translate, tell the stories that matter, use the language that matters. What are some ways do we recommend to find your target audience? So we had so much fun a few weeks ago. We did a session where we went through the target audience piece and how you can use AI to help you really get into the mindset of your target audience, build a customer persona, and then use that persona to ask questions and dig deeper into what types of companies, what types of influencers, what types of articles might this person be reading, what types of LinkedIn groups might they be in. So it really gets to be clarity on that target audience first. Who are they? And then you can start to find where are they and where are they on LinkedIn. Although if you know me, you know that we also changed our course a while ago from just focusing on LinkedIn to talk about how our customers are likely hanging out other places than LinkedIn, especially if you're trying to get out of just targeting people who are unemployed. Employed people typically not hanging out on LinkedIn. So we've got to figure out, yes, we want to be on LinkedIn and there might be places they are, but we also want to look, there's just a big article in Fast Company yesterday on Facebook groups. And I've been preaching about Facebook groups for 2.5 years because there are so many places where people are hanging out, Slack groups, Discord groups, Facebook groups. And our goal is to find where are those conversations already happening that we can versus feeling like we have to always be starting the conversation, which is what we really have to do on LinkedIn because people aren't really hanging out there having these conversations on a regular basis, especially if they're currently employed. So digital branding class starts on Thursday. We go through all of this. How do you set your target audience? How do you find them? What do you do once you find them? How do you engage with them? And then how do you teach job seekers to do the same thing? Because the process we use for us also works for job seekers. You just flip some of the ways you're thinking about it, and you've got a strategy for them to be more proactive. I mean, they don't need to be posting content. They can be building their digital brand, but that's a long-term thing for you and I, for business, for them, for their career. If they're really in job search mode, they're going to want to be more direct and more of a direct approach, and we can help them do that as well. So if you're interested in that program, let me know. It starts on Thursday. Happy to answer any questions. And if you drop me a note, drop me a message, send me an email, we'll answer those questions and send you a little discount code if you want to join us. So let me get back to my questions here. It's clarity on that audience and then figuring out where are they hanging out on LinkedIn and off. Because a lot of times those other platforms have people more regularly than LinkedIn does. Average user does not go to LinkedIn even once a month. It's like 40% of users on LinkedIn go to LinkedIn once a month, whereas you've got 80, 90% of Facebook, Instagram, those users go there every single day. So you've got to find those platforms that integrate well with your LinkedIn strategy and actually connect with your customer on a more regular basis. Excellent. Okay, let me go check my questions here. Um, Personal information. So someone said, I'm nervous about being on LinkedIn because I don't want to share my personal information. Neither do I, and I don't. Branding is about figuring out, one, what matters to your audience. And, I hear a lot of people saying about talk in your voice and use AI to write in your voice. Yes, sure, but I care more that we are thinking about our customer and what they need and what they're looking for, what problems they need solved. And very rarely does my personal life intersect with what my customers need. So I will talk about things I'm interested in. I'll write about some sports stuff. Every once in a while, I'll have pictures of my kids or a story about me as a mom, but it's got to intersect with what can be helpful to my customers. And it doesn't require a lot of personal. It does require us to be personable and accessible and tell stories that are relatable, but it doesn't require me to reveal personal things about my life. And a lot of people in our business are very personable without ever talking about their family because they're talking about stories from them at work, stories from them with their clients. It's really about being vulnerable in the way that you can admit your mistakes, admit when you failed, admit when you did something wrong, and then show when you've had a success. That's the story piece. It doesn't have to be about your personal life. And that's a piece that people don't understand when we're talking about personal branding, professional branding. It isn't about, laying your life out there on display. It's about that you are engaging people in your stories and that you do select some things from your life to let people um, identify with, but you don't have to, air your dirty laundry. And in fact, that can backfire on you as well. All right. High level recruiters for confidential clients. Tips for hard to get people. Get an introduction. You need an introduction. Teddy Burris, who's another LinkedIn guru, and he gave a presentation for our group a long time ago about LinkedIn. And this was one of his secrets, right? You want to build your network in that directionality that's impossible for this person to ignore you because everyone around them is talking about you. Everyone around them is engaging you with their audience. And they kind of start to feel silly for leaving you out because you're engaging with everyone else and in some ways being visible about it. So see who they're connected to and don't go for them right away, but start engaging the people in their audience. See if you could do a workshop for them. See if you could add value for their audience and start to build that notoriety, that visibility in their circle to the point where it seems silly for them to say no to have that conversation with you as well. Yeah, in-mails aren't going to work. Cold approach is not great. You want to start warm. You can start warm by getting those introductions from people that are around people. And you can start warm by commenting on people's posts or commenting on people's comments. Melanie Denny and I talked about this in one of our digital branding classes. Like dropping into someone's direct messages or in-mails, that's personal. That's private. It's like, it's moving too fast. We don't want to do that. We have a conversation in the comments first. We have a conversation in someone else's comments. And now we've warmed that up to where it makes sense. When I reach out with a message, when I reach out with a connection request, we've already had a relationship. It's like, being in a public place, going on the group date first, because we've had that relationship before we try to have that private conversation. And it's going to go off a lot better than anything else. I'm not surprised that you know Teddy, John. Excellent. Okay, let me back up here, see if there's any other questions. So LinkedIn services. If you have a profile and you are offering LinkedIn services through their formal services feature, here's a clue from Denise Bittler, who's one of our, she helps with our AI career services. She's an instructor for that, but she's also just a brilliant lady. And I know that people are using AI tools to respond to requests for services. But what we've figured out is that a lot of people don't know where to look for the proposals, even though they've gone in and requested services. So what Denise does, and this is brilliant, is she sends people connection requests. So yes, she puts in the proposal, thoughtful, not overly personalized, but enough, puts in that proposal, but then she reaches out to people in a connection request and connects to them and then follows up. Because most people, even though they've submitted a proposal request, they don't know where to go. They don't, or they get overwhelmed. And so, with a very good, authentic connection request and a follow up on that proposal, she has very good hit rate. And of course, you are prioritizing the ones that are your typical clients, that are a good, ideal client for you. And then you're following up with them. You're doing the connection request to them. You're not trying to, I mean, unless you've got someone you're paying to do it, which you probably wouldn't, or didn't ask this question, you don't need to try to be a volume provider. You person accepts with your proposal questions and that personal touch that most people, especially those who are using the AI tools, are not going to be offering. Portfolio websites really depends on what you've got to put in it. It can't be a resume retread. Can't just be your resume repeated there. It's got to have value. It's got to offer some additional insights. They can be very helpful. You can build them for free on sites like Wix or Weebly. Doesn't have to be complicated. Is it expected for your career? Then you definitely need one. If it's unexpected for your career, it can still be an awesome tool as long as you've got value in that portfolio and it stays updated. Obviously, you'd think, but I've talked to a lot of recruiters that say, oh, I went to my person's portfolio website and it was out of date and not great. So we've got a partner that offers that. It's Win the View. So Ken Diamond created this system called Win the View, and it's a portfolio site, but I love it because you can create thank you pages. Every time you go to interview with someone, they can have their own thank you page. So it does a little bit more than a Wix or a Weebly, but there's lots of options to build one if it's appropriate. And if you can put things on it that add specific extra value to your resume. They can also be on your LinkedIn profile, but they're laid out the way you want it to be versus the way LinkedIn requires it. So I still think they can have value even on top of a LinkedIn profile. Excellent. Well, if you are a career services provider, I will tell you to stay in touch here because we've got our digital branding class that starts on Thursday. Give you the whole process of walkthrough, what you need to do to be able to build your digital brand and have a package that you can sell to clients to help them do the same for themselves. We give you the tools, we give you the coaching tools, we give you pre-quiz and all the things that you can use with people to really go through and in depth of their digital brand. I encourage you to check out the testimonials on this page. They're towards the bottom of the page. It is a transformational program because we make you do the work. You've got to figure out your own brand. You clarify your own target audience. You do your own customer persona, and our team gives you feedback on that. And you work with a buddy coach who also gives you feedback on it. It's just an opportunity to really take it to the next level for yourself, for your business, or for your clients. And we've had people that gone through it in a corporate setting, in a in education setting, not K, I almost said K through 12. No, college, most of the time, university people going through this as well to help their college students figure out how they want to build their digital brand. And it's one of the few programs that talks about more than LinkedIn. So your students want to know how to use TikTok, how to use Instagram, and we talk about all of that so that you can walk them through it without any fear. You can do it. You can help them build their brand on those sites too, in a way that helps them with their career, which very few people are talking about these days. So join us. Let me know if you have questions. And we will be back next week. And we're going to shift into talking about interview prep. There's so much buzz going on about interview prep. And we had an awesome presentation at our symposium from Gina Riley on executive presence. So we're going to be weaving more of that into our interview prep. And I just can't wait to share some of that with you. So next week, we'll start talking about interview prep. And let me know if you have any questions or topics specific to that you'd like us to cover. We'll be right back here next week with the now, the new, and the next in careers. Thank you, everyone.